Welcome to Vision Plus, a program featuring a positive outlook, dealing with everyday situations of marriage, children, and business. Believing Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Teacher, author, speaker, delighting audiences from New York to Sacramento with a heart and message for the people today. Bonnie would like to remind you of the 800 number on the screen. Please feel free to call at any time throughout the broadcast and share your concerns. Leave your prayer request and someone will pray with you. And now, teacher, author, and speaker, Bonnie.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Vision Plus. Without a vision, the people perish. And I do want to remind you that someone called and ordered a book last week and I didn't get the phone number. I guess I thought that I would memorize it, but no, I had to go to a course over at UAH that said, UA Huntsville, that says use it or lose it, how to have a good strategies for having a good memory. Well, I didn't do that strategy last week when I said you ordered a book and I didn't get your name and phone number, and Tony's shaking his finger at me so that I could send it to you. So if you would please call back. I think it was the Born Again Marriage book, but it could have been the Emily book, our daughter that was a Russian interpreter that took 1 million Bibles to the former Soviet Union, her and her group, and named Emily, and it tells about some of her work over there. And then I don't think it was the Dream Makers of Arkansas, like Sam Walton and the Dillard's company that started there, and a few others. I can't believe it's not yogurt or not ice cream or something. Anyway, and then the Four Seasons of Life. So whichever one you ordered, please call back and give us your number. And I apologize. I promise I will do better, because I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. These are the books that are the Four Seasons of Life, about all of the things that happen in our summer, spring, summer, fall, and winter. There's a 4 series, and so if you'd like to have those, please let us know. And you'll see the number at the bottom of the page if you happen to be picking this up by the video streaming and you're in Baku, Azerbaijan. Please let us know, email us, or look up on the website, the www.drbonniel.com, and you can see it there. Or the toll-free number in the United States is 877-823-6886. Well, we had a great opportunity this past year to teach Financial Peace University. And that was, many of you have taken that course from Dave Ramsey. And one of the students in the class was a young man, everybody's young for me now, and his name is Dan Barney, Dan Barney. He's probably been kidded about that before. He took the class, and he has joined us in our writing course where we talk about writing your life story or testimony or memoirs, whatever you want to call it. Just let your children and grandchildren and future great-grandchildren and future children down the line know about your life and how it was different. Now, one of the reasons I wanted you to meet Dan was he had life starting out kind of like I did on a farm, only his was not in Arkansas, his was in a different state, and we'll find out about that. And what happened to him with the way his parents trained him, and they trained him to work. I think I appreciate my parents. Didn't appreciate it at the time, but where I used to pick and chop cotton and all that good stuff. But I learned to work and be dependable, and I think that all of our youth today need to learn to work. I know my grandchildren go to college and work full-time, and a lot of other people do the same thing. In fact, Dan Barney's son Adam, who's getting married soon to Cindy, Cindy's daughter, what's her name?
Christy Cook.
I knew that. Christy Cook, Cindy Cook's daughter. And Adam got Dan the job. How about that? For a new life. You'll hear what happened in between. So Dan, welcome to Vision Plus.
Thank you, Bonnie.
And I know you and Jody had, well, you didn't know Jody at the time, but you had a vision for your life that you wanted to do a little more than work on the farm, didn't you? Where were you born and started out? And what was your first cereal? No, we don't have to have all the details, but a lot of them.
Okay, Dan Barney. I was born in Rockford, Illinois. Lived there till I was about 5 years old, and then my parents bought a farm in Belvedere, Illinois, out in the country, about 80 acres. My dad worked in Rockford, Illinois as an engineer at Woodward Governor Corporation, and he rented out some of the land, and we were responsible to do a lot of the chores and things around. We had lots of dogs and cats and chickens and horses, and once in a while a cow or two, and lived there till I got married.
Mm-hmm.
On the farm in Belvedere,
Well, what was
Illinois.
your responsibilities on the farm?
It was my job to make sure that the lawn got mowed, the dogs got fed every night. My dad had a part-time job where he trimmed trees on weekends and cut firewood in the wintertime, and in the summertime we trimmed trees, and it was my job to help my dad I would hold the rope while my dad would climb up the tree and trim the branches down, and it was my job to make sure that the rope didn't move where the limb that he was cutting would fall on a tree or fall on a house or anything like that. So that was one of my jobs. I also had to load the brush, clean up the equipment, clean up the yard when we were done trimming, those kinds of things. Lots of things at home that I was responsible to take care of. Took care of the kids, my younger siblings quite a bit, while my parents had special things that they were taking care of at different times as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, you lived on this farm. You did all the farm chores that any of you that have ever lived on a farm know. There's just lots of work to do on a farm. It seems like never-ending task and jobs to do. But now, when you moved out onto the farm, tell me what happened one day. Someone invited you to church. Or tell me that story. How did you happen to go?
Yeah, when I was about 12 years old, 6th grade or so, a family moved in down the road from the farm that had 4 children, and the oldest of those children was a young lady, and then there were 3 boys about my age, a little younger, and the daughter was a little older. And over time, I developed a relationship with these boys, and eventually with this young lady, and eventually they invited me to come to church. And they would often ask me, but because of my responsibilities, I would often not be able to participate. And but over time, to be able to spend more time with this young lady, I decided, well, I'll see if I can work out a plan to go to church. So over time, I was able to attend services every now and then, and I developed more relationships at church with young people, and I met my future wife as one of those young people there at that time. And but that was the experience of getting to go to church.
Now, when you went to church, you really actually liked going, didn't you? You liked the relationship with the other kids around your age.
It was something that I hadn't been exposed to, being on the farm.
Because your parents at that time never did go to church.
Right. They were very busy on the farm, and we just didn't. Church was not a part of our life, and so the opportunity to learn about God and what the Bible said and what Jesus had done for me was something that was enlightening and encouraging, and something I wanted to understand better.
And what did your Sunday school teacher do?
Well, over time, after attending off and on for several years, my I got a call one night from the Bible class teacher, and he just asked me, he said, I know you've been thinking about becoming a Christian. What is it that's keeping you from making those choices? And basically I had been thinking about it, trying to decide, is this something that I'm prepared to do, capable to do? And so I just explained that I understood that Jesus was wanting me to live a life of service for Him. And I felt as when I was probably between my freshman and sophomore years in high school. And so I wasn't able to drive, still was dependent on others to get around and do those kinds of things. Still had lots of responsibilities on the farm. And I explained to my teacher that I wasn't sure that could keep the commitments that I felt I wanted to make if I was going to become a Christian. I said I don't have the ability, the resources, the opportunities to do the things that I would like to be involved in. I'd like to attend services more. I'd like to be more involved in the programs the church had to offer, those kinds of things. And so over time, or during that conversation, he said, well, you need to just let God help you work through those things. If you want to be His child, He'll help you work through those opportunities to serve Him. And he says, you're a good young man, you have good values, and he says it wouldn't take that much of a change in your life to be an effective servant for Christ. And so I talked with him for a little while, and after a couple of weeks, I came to the decision that that's what I wanted to do. So it turned out that particular the weekend, the Sunday, that I had decided that I was going to be baptized. Earlier that week, my dad says, well, I need you to help me up in Wisconsin with this tasks that he had going on there. And so we didn't actually get home until close to 5 o'clock Sunday afternoon from Wisconsin. And so I called the neighbors and asked them if they were going to services Sunday night. And they said, yes, we're planning to go. And I said, well, I'd like to go and be baptized tonight. And they said, well, we're definitely planning to go, so we'll make sure we pick you up. And I was baptized that Sunday evening. And I guess something that I wasn't aware of is that my sister had been attending with us at times, and she had gone to services that morning with the neighbors, and she had been baptized that morning.
Wow.
But when I got home, she was already gone and done something else with my mom, so I wasn't aware, and so we were both baptized the same day. And I just think that's something that God decided that we'd be beneficial for each other in our Christian walk.
And then how did your parents, he wanted you to work on the farm, and Sunday's one of his main days because he did other things the other 6 days. How did he handle that, and what was his thoughts to tell you that?
He initially he was concerned that I was going to be wanting to not help him because I wanted to be involved in church things, and over time he wanted me to be able to experience or support the commitment that I'd made, but he also wanted me to understand that he needed my help as well. But he was very willing to help me, allow me to work through the process, and we did a lot of coordination of talking about what needed to get done and what events I had wanted to participate in and those kinds of things. And over time, he recognized that I was making good choices and that I was keeping my end up of the agreement of what I said I would help him with and those kinds of things. So he was not disappointed or frustrated that I was aware of anyway. And so I think it made a good impression on him that both myself and my sister, we were both making good decisions and very helpful and cooperative and supportive.
And you weren't yelling at her like the normal siblings do, and she wasn't yelling at you.
We didn't. Yeah, we had a pretty good relationship. Occasionally, we'd struggle with things, but for the most part, we were very supportive and encouraging of each other as we strive to be the people that we wanted to be, but we really didn't have a lot of example in our life for living a Christian life, and so we depended upon our relationships with people at church to help us. You know, we would watch their lives and we would listen to their interactions and see the choices that they made, and we would use them, and that would help us a lot in making choices, and they would provide us opportunities to, excuse me.
Well, you didn't have that going through the drugs and drinking and staying out with girls all night and all that kind of stuff.
This is true, right.
And then, what about later on when you got, this girl wasn't exactly the right one, but she kind of hooked you into, without realizing it, to go to church, and then you met another person. Tell us about that experience.
The young lady that I had grown to be very fond of as younger in my days of starting to go to church, she had a friend about the same age. Her name was Jody, and it turns out Jody's family was one of the founding families of the church in Belvedere that we attended, and he was an elder, her dad was an elder, excuse me, and over time throughout high school we spent time together, but we really didn't date in high school, and then after we both graduated the same year from high school. I had planned to attend a local college, and she took a year off, not planning to go to college until after she had worked a year to get a little more financially prepared to do that. But a year later, that next summer, she was planning to go off to college, and we'd been dating quite a bit more since that spring. And about a week or two, she had gone to college and gotten set up with a roommate and gotten her college courses and everything. And I thought
that was in Michigan.
She was going to go to school in Michigan, and I thought, well, if I don't.
What's amazing to me is my uncle was one of the teachers there. Went about the same time that Hoy Ledbetter was there. So, so he wouldn't have been as known as Hoy Ledbetter, but belittles his name. So you may have been around him and didn't even know it. And
this is true.
Some years later, meet his niece.
Yeah.
And so anyway, she went away. She's registered for school. She got her classes. Then what happened?
Well, she came back, and we dated quite intensively for a few weeks. And I realized that if I didn't pop the question, she'd find somebody else when she went off to school. And so I asked her if she'd choose me for. I'd like to have her be my wife, and if she'd choose me to be her husband. And she was very excited to say yes. I think she was excited. She seemed excited. And
she's still hanging around.
Right,
a few children later.
Right, she chose to stick around, and we got married in December of that year. And she didn't go off to college, and instead she worked while I went to college.
Now you haven't had even though that sounds wonderful, but the married life, you've gone through some ups and downs. What are some of the challenges you had? Because for a while, she was working and you weren't. Was that the way it was?
Right. When we first got married, I was going to school full-time and working part-time, and she was working full-time, and it was just, it wasn't the relationship that we wanted to have, but we both would sacrifice to make things work, knowing that at some point I would be able to finish school and those kinds of things. So initially it was kind of a challenge, but we worked through that.
Now, how in the world did you get from Michigan and Illinois all the way down here to Huntsville, Alabama? Did you come with a banjo on your knee?
No, I'm not much of a musician, but worked for a company in Rockford for over 30 years, and was laid off in September of 2007. And was finishing up my master's degree at Rockford College at the time. So I worked through, finished that semester in December, graduated my degree at that point
In
Rockford, Illinois.
no, but in what's your degree?
Business Administration, Master's,
Okay.
MBA.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, my wife and I talked about we'd always wanted to relocate to Nashville. We've got a lot of family in the Nashville area, and we relocated there. My wife got a job in Nashville while I was continuing to look for a job, and spent about 6 months in the Nashville area. And my son Adam, all of our children, we have 3 children, all graduated from Lipscomb University in Nashville. And my youngest son Adam graduated with an engineering degree, was hired by Lockheed here in Huntsville.
Lockheed Martin.
And Adam realized that we wanted to be in the Nashville area, but he said, let me submit your resume to Lockheed here.
Mm-hmm.
And they liked what they saw apparently. There was a position that they wanted me to work for, had a position open in the IT department, and I was hired as a software compliance administrator here at Lockheed in Huntsville.
Mm-hmm.
That was about just over a year ago.
And then your wife was still working in Nashville, and you were living here, and you were weekend sweethearts again, weren't you?
Yes. The situation was, I started working about a little over a year ago down here, and so my wife began looking for work down here. During that time, the economy had gotten a little more difficult, and so she was having trouble finding work down here, so she would come down Friday night, go back to work, drive up to Nashville Monday mornings. And but thankfully, this past July, she was hired for a position at Mill Creek Elementary School in Madison. So
And I think it's
so
a new
she's back
school,
down
and
here.
she loves that.
Exactly.
And then your son now is getting married, the one that got, in essence, got you a job at Lockheed Martin.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Adam and Christy are getting married the first weekend in November.
Mm-hmm. Now, it just sounds like it's been a perfect journey. Tell me a little bit about how your dad and mom, what has happened with them since
Okay.
you're being a Christian all this time.
Right. I was married, we were married in 1974, December 1974. That next summer, my parents decided to relocate to Arkansas. My grandparents lived in Arkansas on a farm, and my dad wanted to buy their farm and get out of the environment where he was working for someone else and get back on the farm where he could be his own boss and be back on the farm and just kind of his childhood joys that he had there. So they moved to Arkansas 6 months after we were married, and my youngest brother went with them. My other 2 sisters got married between the time that we did and the time my parents moved to Arkansas. Both of my sisters, who were younger than I am, also were married during that time. So my mom struggled leaving the 3 kids that had just gotten married up in this area, or up in the Illinois area of the country, and moving away about 800 miles, 16 hours away. So it was a struggle initially, but my parents adjusted to the farm down there, and my father, over time, demonstrated. There was an individual there in Arkansas who asked him to get involved in studying the Bible, and based on what I think he had seen in his children's lives, he decided that he wanted to understand more about it, and eventually he became a Christian, was baptized, and is now very active in teaching a Bible class.
Did he
in a
ever
church.
thank you for your life, or indicate in any way that he appreciated the example you had been for him, you and Jody?
He didn't ever specifically say. He just always says, you've always been good kids, and
Yeah.
those kinds of things, and I appreciate who you are and what you
It's
who
so
you've been.
amazing that so many Christian couples that born, raised, and sometimes their children don't go to church, and here your children were instrumental in going on to all become Christians and live the Christian life.
Right.
It's just amazing how you didn't grow up as a younger child in a home that went to church 3 times a day or a week.
Right.
And then you became one of those that went a lot.
Right.
And so I don't really understand that, why some children don't always go to church. They may have been baptized and believers, believe in God, pray, but they just don't always go to church. It's a mystery to me. And as soon as you figure that out, please tell me.
Well, there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that...
Well, tell me
we like
about
those
your
answers.
dad and mom, and what happened to your mom. How?
Okay. About age 50, my mom had a stroke and left her unable to use her right arm. She was right-handed, and it also limited her ability to walk. And she really struggled with getting around. But my dad says, "I'll take care of you. You've taken good care of me all these years." And so now my dad works on the farm, goes out early in the morning, does chores, comes in, checks on my mom, fixes breakfast, goes back out, does chores, comes in at lunchtime, checks on her, fixes meals, and pretty much takes care of her. His whole life is consumed with the farm and taking care of my mom pretty much every day. He may go to town once a week just to take care of chores or do shopping or something and those kinds of things. But
And
that's pretty
teaches
much
a
it.
Sunday school class.
Right.
Pretty unbelievable. What a story of a person that didn't have those formative years serving the Lord, but later wanted to do that. So we are studying 1 Peter 3:15. Always be ready to give an answer to the hope that's in you, and we'd like to encourage you if you would like to have this tape to encourage other people, you may get that. And thank you very much, Tony Libhart, running camera, and Dan Barney for being here, and Jody went to the praise section, or music.
Right.
And you came over here for this, where we learn to tell our memoirs, or our life story, or our testimony, whatever word you want to use. And
Thank you.
without you, it wouldn't be any reason for us to make a tape. And I'm so happy that you joined us. I'm Bonnie Libhart, along with Dan and Tony. Bless your heart for watching.
Without a vision, the people perish. Welcome to Vision Plus, a program featuring a positive outlook, dealing with everyday situations of marriage, children, and business. Believing Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Teacher, author, speaker, delighting audiences from New York to Sacramento, with a heart and message for the people today. Bonnie would like to remind you of the 800 number on the screen. Please feel free to call at any time throughout the broadcast and share your concerns. Leave your prayer request and someone will pray with you. And now, teacher, author, and speaker, Bonnie.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Vision Plus. I know a lot of you out there are having a struggle with finances, even if you have a job and you have been working, but you didn't anticipate maybe when you bought your house that the gasoline was going to go so much higher, the groceries were going to go up so much more, and that cars seem to need tires when you, in a very inopportune moment. I know Tony and I had a struggle. We started a business about in the early 80s, and we took the equity out of our house. We went and borrowed a $150,000 SBA loan. We went and borrowed money from Dan Baker and his cars, about $96,000. Went to Moore and Son in Memphis, and they had the Wellmans, $100,000. Anyway, we had a great amount of money that we owed, and started the business. But it worked out great for several years, and then something happened, and there was too much month at the end of the money. And there are other people that have had these struggles also, and they're just tossing around in their mind, should I sell my house? Should I try to make it, even if I owe nothing else but just have to pay? Many times there's, of course, utilities, food, clothing, gasoline. There's the house payment, I say that. And then you have maybe child support if you had gone through maybe that marriage didn't work out for whatever what reason. But there's other things that you have to pay. Or you could have lost your job and been out of work for a year. We have a good friend we were with Sunday night that's in our class, and he's been without a job for almost a year now, and it's a real struggle. Even if you've had a job all this time, it can be a struggle. But one of the people that you met possibly last week, Dan Barney, was in our Financial Peace